you're an agent that's working with buyers in a competitive market, I got a few tips for you that I think are going to help you get more of your offers accepted. And what prompted me to make this video is a quick story that I'm going to tell you. I actually have a listing right now where I'm representing the seller, right? I have, it's a hot listing. It's a good price point. It's in a good area. The house is completely remodeled. We priced it well. We staged it. We marketed it very, very well. So we had a lot of interest in the property, probably like 40 groups of people that came through the open house on the first weekend, and we received a handful of offers within 1 week. Okay, so it came down for me to look at the offers as the listing agent and try to figure out, okay, who is going to pay me the best price, the best terms for my seller, but also how do I pick the different offers, right? I sent out a multiple counter on this property, and 3 offers came back and all accepted the multiple counter, right? They're basically all at the same price. They were all non-contingent, and they all had pretty, good down payments, all those different things. So me as the listing agent, I got to figure out, okay, well, who should I go with, right? If all the offers look the same, how do I pick, which offer, I want to tell my seller to go with? How do I help them make that decision? So here's a few things that I did as a listing agent. This is where I think if you're a buyer's agent, you need to understand this. Number one is the first thing I did was I Googled each agent. I punched in their name, I typed their name, put Realtor, and I saw what popped up. And you would be surprised. One of the agents, nothing. It was hard even finding anything online that showed who they were. Another agent popped up, and there was a few things online, but it looked like the agent hadn't sold a lot of homes. The other agent that popped up, I was able to pull up their Zillow profile. I saw that they had like 600 sales on their belt. They had a small team. They were very, very active in the market. And so right away, like that had me leaning towards that agent because I said, hey, if this agent's done a lot of sales, then the chances of them having the sale go through smoothly is a lot higher than these other agents who I don't see their track record. The other thing I have to consider too is that if they're an agent that's very, very active and does a lot of business, that means they must be pretty decent at their job, and they're probably having good conversations with their buyers. They're probably setting the right expectations with their buyers. They're probably guiding them, and they're probably giving them, realistic, idea of what's going to happen in the process and what the market's like, which I like that, right? If I'm a listing agent, I want to make sure they know what's going on because that's going to be a smoother deal. That's tip number one, guys, is what can you influence? Number one is you can go online and make sure all your profiles are set up. Google yourself, Google your name and put the word realtor and see what pops up. Number two, in this scenario that didn't have a lot of sales, he was calling me, and I got on the phone with him. He said, hey, is there anything I can do? And by this point, we were already going to go with a different offer. And I gave him some advice. I said, hey, it doesn't look like you have a lot of sales under your belt. He goes, no, I do. I have this sale. I have that sale. I have that sale. I was on this team and all this stuff. And I said, well, when I Google your name, I don't see any of that. I go, your Zillow profile says you had 1 sale in the last 12 months. And he's telling me that he had all kinds of other sales. He goes, well, if you look at me on the MLS and look me up and all this stuff. And I said, for me to do that, that's a lot of work for me. If I'm busy and I'm getting a lot of calls on this property, I don't have time to go try to find you on the MLS. And so I can verify that you're a legit agent. I go, you have to make it easy for me to see you, right? And already be able to decide, hey, is this a competent agent that I would want to work with? So realtors, if your online profiles are not set up, you are had a huge disadvantage compared to the agents who have really taken the time to make sure all their sales reflect on the major websites like Zillow, Realtor.com, MLS, all those different portals. The other thing this agent told me is that he was part of a team, and I actually know that team leader, but that was nowhere to be found online. Had he told me that in the beginning, I probably would have had a different conversation with him, or maybe I would have reached out to that team leader and vetted that agent. But since I didn't know that, I didn't do that, right? So that's the tip right there. Make sure your online profiles are up to date. Now, here's another tip. Out of all these offers, right, that I was, choosing through and helping my seller decide, none of the loan officers from these buyers, except for one, reached out to me. And guess who that particular one was? It was the agent that had a lot of sales. So that's one huge tip right there. When you submit an offer in a competitive market, remember, sometimes you're fighting for inches, right? You need to make sure your loan officer is fighting with you. You need to make sure your loan officer is calling the listing agent and pleading the case for that buyer. Hey, this is the buyer. Hey, they're a strong buyer. This is their background. This is how much down payment. This is who I am as a loan officer. Because not only am I vetting the agent, I'm vetting the buyer, but I'm also vetting the loan officer and their ability to close the deal. And so because that agent called me, the loan officer called me and had a good conversation and told me what bank he was part of and how quick he can make the deal happen, and all the things that he was doing. And it was on a Saturday. He goes, it's Saturday. I'll start working on the file today. Should you choose to work with us? He was showing his aggressiveness, right? And so that's the huge tip right there, is make sure your loan officer is fighting with you so that your buyers have the best chance possible. That is what pushed this over the edge, right? Okay, last thing here is we came down to multiple counter offers. I countered 3 different offers. I countered them all at the same price, at the price that we were shooting for. All the offers were non-contingent, so I didn't have to counter really on any other terms. But I countered them all, and I had the agents reaching out to me, hey, can you give me an idea of where we got to be at and all this stuff? And I'm a very straight shooter. When I'm working a listing, I try to just show the cards, because I feel that helps me bring the price up for my seller. So I'll tell everyone, hey, there's this many offers. This is where you need to be at. And I'll start trying to influence that price to come up, which is why I think I'm a good negotiator. And I told everybody, the 3 that I countered all 3 of you. It's going to be close. But if you want to come even higher than the counter so that you can really stand out, or you want to make the terms even better rather than just accepting the counter, that will give you a really good shot. I told all 3 of them that. And guess what? The first 2, they didn't do anything. They were trying to negotiate and trying to see if they can get the price lower than the counter that I sent out. The last offer, which is also this agent that has a lot of experience, kudos to them. They came back with the counter to our multiple counter, and they increased the price even higher slightly than what I was countering everybody at. And they also shortened their close of escrow by a few days, which pretty much sealed the deal right there. So they raised the bar just a little bit higher, even if it was not that much, but that stood out. They shortened the close of escrow, which told me they can close sooner. And then they had their loan officer call me, which really sealed the deal. So I'm looking at these 3 offers, and I'm like, if I'm going to go with anyone, or if I'm going to push my seller and advise them to go with anyone, it's going to be this one. This one's showing the aggressiveness, the responsiveness. They're calling me. They're getting their loan officer involved. They're reading the market, right? They're taking my advice when I said, hey, I have these 3 offers. If you want to come even higher, that's going to give you a good shot, right? They took me at face value, and they made it happen. And ultimately, that is what made them win the deal. So I'm putting this message out to you guys watching, because I had, agent number 2 who was calling me and trying to say, hey, is there anything we can do? And kind of, doing that type of deal. And in my mind, I was like, man, I wish I could coach this agent, and if I were to coach him, this is what I would tell him, right? And so if you're working with buyers in a competitive market, just remember that sometimes you are this close between offer 1, 2, or 3. Sometimes it's inches. And price, of course, matters and terms matter. But outside of that, these are all the other intangible things that are going to give the listing agent confidence to work with you. And that's what we're looking for as a listing agent, is the confidence that you can close the deal, that you're setting the right expectations, that you're going to take this to the finish line. I don't want to take an offer and then it falls through, right? I don't want to take an offer and the expectations weren't realistic, or some funny stuff happens throughout the transaction. That makes me look bad for my seller. And because, this was a hot listing and I'm getting a ton of calls, even after the offers came in and after our offer due date, my phone would not stop ringing. That's a little bit overwhelming. So you got to think to yourself as the buyer agent, how can I make this easier for the listing agent, right? How can I make it easier to choose my offer, easier in the process? How can I put the initiative forward? Hey, do you want me to just send you a new clean offer with better terms? Do you want me to do this? All these different things. And really, at the end of the day, those are the things that pushed it over the edge when the offers were that close. So guys, when you're working with buyers, I hope you take this information to heart, because this is real life stuff that's happening right now here in the Silicon Valley Bay Area in the competitive market. I don't think things are going to get any easier. Inventory is low in our area. if it's a hot property in a good area and it's priced well, there's always going to be competition. And you as an agent have a duty to your client to do everything possible to give them that competitive advantage. And that's how we coach our agents on our team. All these small little nuances that add up and they make the difference. So take that for what it's worth. Go put this into action. If I could do anything for you, if you want to jump on a coaching call, if you have a scenario, or if you even want to explore what it would be like to partner with me and be able to get this type of feedback on a daily basis in your business, then reach out to me and book a call and we'll go from there. We'll talk to you soon, guys. I hope this message finds you well and you get some value out of it. Peace out.